Adam Creighton, so fantastic to see you as always. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Oh, well, great to have you as always, and I'm very keen to get your opinion on all the latest happenings stateside, so to speak. Now, look, Adam, how did you take the bloodbath comments from Donald Trump? I mean, are you sitting there trembling in your boots for the future and safety of Americans? Is it really that terrible?
No, look, certainly not. I mean, it was a very predictable response from the mainstream media here. They completely took it out of context, and they implied that he was calling for physical violence, which is completely ridiculous, and everyone knows it's ridiculous. I mean, if you look at what he actually said before and after, he was clearly talking about the automotive industry in the US and what carnage there would be in that sector if Joe Biden were re-elected. Because as you know, probably one of Trump's policies, and I'm not saying it's a good policy, but one of the policies is to put a 10% tariff on everything. And in his view of the world, that will make life easier for the US car industry. So that's what he was talking about. But of course, we had all these headlines in the New York Times, Washington Post, saying that he was calling for a bloodbath. I think actually that reaction helps him, to be honest, because it's so predictable and it was so obviously taken out of context. Indeed, there were some prominent liberals or some prominent left-wing intellectuals who said online that it was ridiculous and that that the headlines were disingenuous and they were embarrassing. I think it was Ian Bremmer. So it's not just Trump supporters that thought it was ridiculous. It was people on the other side as well, and it just boosts his support at the end of the day.
I think you're right, and it's interesting. I mentioned this in my editorial. It's just come out. He's passed the 1,215 delegates. It's vastly more likely than not now. Obviously, he's going to be the nominee. It's like clockwork. The mainstream media and the Democrats wheeled out their 2016 playbook, and the number one play, of course, was taking sound bites from Donald Trump, ripping them from context, and putting hysterical kind of captions on them. Are we going to see a repeat of the 2016 tactics, do you think, this election cycle?
Well, we're certainly seeing a repeat of it with the Russia hoax. That's certainly coming back. I mean, that dogged Donald Trump for the whole 4 years of his first term, basically. And as you know, it was completely baseless, completely without foundation. I mean, as the Mueller report found, as various other reports have found, and I think, if you want to be really cynical. And I think, and I am, I think part of the reason why the Democrats want to keep the war going with Russia in Ukraine is to keep Russia prominent in the media, and it means they can keep associating Trump with Vladimir Putin. And so I think they're using the war for domestic political reasons. Of course, no one says that out loud, but I think if you're a political strategist, you'd have to say that would be in the Democrats' thinking for sure. So yeah, look, we're going to see all the same sort of things as we saw before, but I think people are so hardened into their positions that it just doesn't make any difference.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And the fact that there were prominent left-wingers out there calling the media out on that stupid reaction to the bloodbath comment, that wouldn't have happened in 2016. All the leftists were pretty much in lockstep. So I think the fact that some of them are coming out and going, guys, come on, please don't pull this again,
I think because some of those leftists recognise that it actually damages their side.
Yeah.
So because they've just done it too much.
Exactly, yeah. They've just, it's like a used dish rag at this point. And I think you make a great point about how the reason the Democrats want the war to keep going is so that they can associate Trump with Putin. But correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Vladimir Putin say recently, I think, to Russian media that he would prefer Biden to win this election than Trump because Biden's a lot more predictable?
Yes, he's actually said that twice, actually, in two different interviews, which is very funny. And you never know with Putin whether he's trolling or not, or because he has such a deadpan expression all the time. But certainly that was very funny. But there was some other interesting reporting that came out of, I think Matt Taibbi wrote it. He's a prominent journalist here, and basically they uncovered, I think, just in the last month or two, that the CIA actually thought back in 2016. That, they were split internally as to whether Putin preferred Clinton or Trump. But of course, they ultimately implied that that Putin preferred Trump, but actually internally they weren't sure. So so the point being is that it is quite possible that Putin would prefer a Democrat because of the predictability.
I mean, look, if I were Putin, I would probably, in fact, definitely prefer Biden because Trump is Trump. He's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, look, we will have to see what happens, but it's all very interesting. And look, Trump is facing he's under the pressure at the moment. He's facing the pressure of securing his US $454 million bond. It is an outrageous amount. One of the suggestions floating around is that he's filing for bankruptcy. I mean, is this just bad luck that Trump, the man who's worth over $2 billion US, can't get this money together, or is there a nefarious agenda here? Like, what's going on?
Well, no, look, I think you'd find most, kind of that small group of people in the world who are worth more than $2 billion, very few of them would have $500 million cash. I mean, it'd be a very unusual thing to do. So it's not surprising that he can't get that money together at short notice. I mean, to have a quarter of your wealth in cash would be rather strange. And as you said, it's all tied up in various prestigious properties, kind of all around the United States and the world, indeed. Look, he has been very unlucky with that judgment. I mean, in my view, it was a very politically motivated case that was brought by the New York Attorney General. And I'm sure the judge loathes Trump as well. And that's partly why the penalty was just so huge. For a so-called, crime that really had no victims. I mean, of course, it was a civil case, but so anyway, but yes, he's got to get this money together by Monday, by the 25th of March. And if he doesn't, the state of New York has every right to start seizing assets, and that includes his properties and also his bank accounts. And I'm not sure when this is going to air, but it's Thursday now, and it's looking very unlikely that he's going to get that money together. So there'll be fireworks on Monday. I think it'll be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and look, do you reckon, I mean, one of the reasons that Trump was attractive to people in the first place in 2016 was because of his shtick as a businessman, I can look after the economy, I know I'm great with money, I'm really, really rich, you want me managing your economy, all of that kind of stuff, which worked so well. So is this, obviously the judge probably loathes Trump, is this an easy way for the media and the Democrats to spin that, maybe he's always grappling for cash, so he's actually not that great of a businessman? Are they trying to tear away that part of his image?
Yeah, look, I think they're going to try that, but also I think it's a very risky situation for the Democrats here because if I'm just putting myself in the position of a kind of median independent voter in the US, and I see this crazed attorney general from New York who's using the power of the police, seizing the assets of a successful businessman, or at least someone who I think is a successful businessman, that looks really bad. So if I were Letitia James and I was thinking purely in terms of political strategy, I would not go too hard next week. I would not be seizing all the buildings because I think that's just going to boost his political support even more. And look, we've seen that for the last 12 months. Every single indictment, every single court case, every single appearance, his polling goes up. And I just think if they see, his private property being attacked by police for a so-called crime that had no victims, I think that's a bad look.
I think it's a bad look too, and it would seem obvious that it's a bad look. And we've seen in the polls that this strategy continues to boost his support. So my question is, Adam, why do the Democrats keep engaging in this lawfare with Trump when all it's done so far is make people like him even more?
Well, look, this is a great question. No one really knows the answer to that. I mean, some people say that it depends how conspiratorial you are. I mean, it's probably fair to say that Democrats some Democrats prefer Trump to be the nominee because they think he's the only one, he's the best bet for Joe Biden to beat. They worry that Joe Biden can't beat anywhere else, but he might beat Donald Trump. And so therefore they wanted Donald Trump to be the nominee. Now, if that's the case, then maybe they did know that all of this lawfare would help Trump, which it has. On the other hand, and I probably fall into the other hand a bit, I don't think people are playing three-dimensional chess. I think they thought that these indictments would damage Trump, and they haven't. Because this hadn't really been tried before, right? There'd never been a case in US political history where you have a presidential candidate with so many indictments and so much legal action pertaining against him or her. And so there was really no playbook to know what would happen. Well, kind of now we know. It helps the candidate.
Yes, it does. Yes, it definitely does.
But of course, the hilarity of all this is that all these cases are going to be pushed after the election anyway. I mean, seemingly. So, I mean, it's kind of helped him. It's helped him politically without any of the legal ramifications yet.
I know it is pretty extraordinary. I think you might be right. I think that certain people in power have really misjudged this, and it is continuing to blow up in their faces. And look, I'm here for it. I find it great fun.
Yes, it is entertaining.
It's very good.